Morning, everybody. This is just a snapshot of a little idea I had a few years ago. I was asked to join an NGO board, the Heritage Clubs of Jamaica. And while we were in deliberations about what to do, we came up with this idea of how to help children understand, preserve, and help us to document our intangible heritage. And it has gone through a few changes since conceptualization, and this is where we've taken it. So, within this talk, I'll tell you a little bit about the institutional partners, background of the project, the process, the budget, some outputs, lessons learned, what's next, and some acknowledgements. And one of the reasons I thought of bringing this to the meeting is that it's something that we can all use in our individual territories to get the children involved. I mean, we already have them involved in various heritage activities, but in this way, they're all walking around with a cell phone now. So there are lots of things that they could actually capture and do. So the UW Geology Museum, that's a museum I'm in charge of at the University of the West Indies, and it was established in 1961 as just an ordinary museum to house collections for teaching. And then later on, we acquired the geological collections from the Institute of Jamaica and the Geological Survey of Jamaica. And so we protect and keep and care the geological knowledge for Jamaica. Heritage Clubs of Jamaica is an NGO group, and it was established in 1996 to aid in the work of heritage within schools, primary schools, high schools, and universities and colleges. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust is our agency, our local agency, similar to your heritage trusts across the Caribbean. And they are responsible, through their act, responsible for the protection of heritage sites and buildings and so on. The African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, the Jamaica Memory Bank, is a department of or division rather, of the Institute of Jamaica. And they initially were involved in African retention. Then they were merged with the Jamaica Memory Bank, and they do a lot of memory banking. In recent years, they did a project funded by UNESCO in memory banking, for example, the German descendants in Jamaica, in Seaford Town, and they have been doing similar projects since. In fact, a lot of their work has been featured in a local Sunday afternoon program on television known as Hill and Gully Ride. So that has been quite good for Jamaica and for the Institute of Jamaica at large. Right, so I think I've told you all that. So essentially, we had to prepare a strategic plan. And if you're gonna have a strategic plan, other than identifying your partners and stakeholders and all of this, you really need to be able to say how you're going to realize your vision. And one of the ways we want to realize our vision is to engage children, because once you engage the children, they take this information home. It engenders, and we've seen it in natural history, it engenders spreading this knowledge within the home and, by extension, within the community. So we wanted to start, in search of a better word, from the grassroots. So in a bid, we want to bring people into their own realization that they have a role to play in their heritage. And what we do now forms the heritage of your great-great-grandchildren. So unless we engender that thought of from whence we came, we are unable to tell the people who are coming later on what we've done. So yeah, I'll just move on. The initial project, we wanted to just have children identifying sages, they used to call them, or older people in the community, interview them, talk to them about events, activities, anything of historical value for that community or that school or that locale or district. Because sometimes we can identify with our heritage if we start from where we live. And unless we can start from that little seed, it makes it very, very difficult to see heritage in a national, regional, or even global context. So all of this was connected to the overall Heritage Clubs in Schools program. Right, so they tell short stories, upload material to social media. So anything within the community of value, they would be able to document this. We wanted, initially we wanted to involve 15 schools, and I was very ambitious. I wanted to buy 15 cameras and 15 tripods and, get all these children to sign out these cameras and be able to go and take all these fancy pictures and be able to have all this fancy material put on social media. And in your head, it's a grand idea. And then you search your pockets. So it sat around for about 2 years, trying to write grants, talk to people. And then it seemed, it's not that nobody wanted to fund it, they just weren't quite sure how sustainable it would be, how we would monitor the use of the cameras, what would happen to them after a year. And so it became a little daunting, but I don't give up that easily. So in 2014, when we had the conference, the MAC conference in Jamaica, while the workshop was going on, I went to the restroom and met up on Kesia Weiss. She's the young lady who is a researcher at ACIJ. And we just happened to be talking. And I said, oh, by the way, would you guys be willing to do this? She says, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But where are we going to get cameras from? I said, oh, guess what? We can use cell phones. And, well, I made it eventually back to the workshop. But long and short of it is that dialogue in 2014 developed into what I'm about to talk about. And it was very interesting because the way you plan it in your head, the way you try to execute it, and then to have children pick that up, you learn a lot of lessons along the way. So we revamped the project. Instead of purchasing cameras, we decided the students could use their mobile phones and they could use their tablets, their iPads, and so on. The problem was, in Jamaica, there's a rule in most schools. You're not allowed to have your cell phones. So they had schools that they were piloting the tablets, so we thought if we use tablets, then it would work. So we had 2 schools who were already begging for heritage work. So we said, okay, we'll start with them. We had some challenges there. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So the idea was to host some workshops, teach some skills, how to make documentaries, how to document history, how to write, we gave them information about copyright and so on, so that they would be able to produce a 10-minute video on any heritage-related aspect of their choice as a group. They had to showcase their films at a symposium, which would be we dubbed that symposium, this would have been our second one, a film festival, and they would have to give a little press conference. So they had to write a little brief about their video and talk about this, and then we would take that, the media would take that and give us some exposure, or give them some exposure. So the tools that they needed, we provided them with data release forms and consent forms in a bid to explain to them that in order to take somebody's picture and to video what they're saying, you needed to get their consent that they want to be on film and give them all the information about it. So they learned a little bit about that. We told them about copyright and copyright law. We explained to them that they owned their videos and the content would be stored with the ACIJ, the Jamaica Memory Bank, and what that meant and how that impacted history and heritage. We taught them how to give credit. So you would have to make sure at the end of your video that you'd have to give credit to the sponsors and all the people involved. We gave them some project guidelines, what the project was about, what they needed, how they were supposed to go about it, and so on. And it seemed to have worked fairly well in the beginning. We had to tell them also, because you can't take for granted that people know why heritage is important, even though we have Heritage Day and Heritage Week. Right now in schools in Jamaica, they're celebrating Heritage Week. Heritage Day is on, Heroes Day is on Monday. And even though they do this, it's not something that immediately connects in your mind. This is just another school activity. And on Heroes Day, we're gonna get the day off and we'll be at home for 2 days and then we go back to school. We have a big concert and that's what heritage is about. So we had to give them, some context. Intangible heritage, natural heritage, etc. And it seemed to have worked. They grasped those concepts really well. We wanted them to understand that as citizens of Jamaica and anywhere else they become citizens of, they now are part of the heritage process. and their responsibility, of course. So we had flash drives, tablets, smartphones. They needed a PC, they needed internet, they needed stationery, notebooks, folders, pencils, such the like. So the flash drives, my board did not like the idea of flash drives. They're little, they're gonna get lost, where do they go, how do we keep track of them? Anyway, we've kept track of them. Tablets and smartphones, the children had phones, so on the days that they needed to do their activity, the school was informed and they were allowed to bring the phones in and do what they needed to do. And we had teachers that were responsible for them. One school had a computer lab. Neither school had internet, which proved to be a challenge, and I'll show you in a minute. In terms of stationery, we brought all of that down. So they were able to use, we bought the flash drives, and unfortunately we weren't able to bring the internet, but we have some innovation with that now that we're gonna try to infuse into that process. So in terms of the administration, I coordinated the project. Basically, I just heard what the implementers were gonna do, brought it back to the board, and made sure that we kept on our timelines. So we had support from the Jamaica National Heritage Trust and the HCJ. The funding was provided by UNESCO, and of course the implementers, Kesia and Damien, and they were awesome. The children actually, they really had a good time, and Dwayne was the audiovisual technician who was supposed to transform the children's videos into the final product after they've edited them and put them all together. Unfortunately, he left the job, and well, that's another challenge. Right, so as you can understand, trying this, which is why it's a pilot project, yeah, because we had all these little challenges. So 4 schools were selected, 2 primary, 2 secondary. And just to say, primary schools, totally different from high schools. A lot of the students in high school who was willing to work on a project like this, they had CXCs, which is our regional exam, and they had SBAs, and so after a while, the teachers said, look, we can't do this. But the 2 primary schools, they persevered, and we actually had a good time with them. So we had kickoff, they learned about heritage clubs, creating and documenting history. We had 2 technical workshops. They learned how to record, they learned how to use their phones to record, they learned how to convert their videos. Then there was an evaluation, so they were left for some time to collect all the material they wanted, and then there was another technical workshop to put it all together, and then to finalize the process. So these are some of them. I have a couple of pictures. So this one seemed to be very interested. That's a computer lab. It's a very good computer lab, but the school was so remote, they didn't have internet. This is another one. This is from Town School. And then that's Mr. Shirley. That's Damien, and that's Kesia around there in the back. And this is one of the other schools. I love to see them in their brownie uniforms. They're just so cute. And here they are. This is another one of the interactive sessions. So we had a budget about, was just about $1,000 US. So it's not really expensive to run this. And this was basically for the material. We had an awards ceremony planned and everything, so some of the money went into that. But a lot of it was just the packages and all the material. Jump drives were quite expensive. But other than that, it was transportation because they were so rural. So what ended the outputs? Indian Town made a video on the Cave River floodplains. So all of this was documenting oral history. They spoke to people in the community, they spoke about floods, they talked about washing, they talked about what they used to wash with, where they went, and so on. The other schools spoke about the New Testament church. They gave you connections to how the church started and how they wrote a letter to somewhere in the US to get permission to start a church, and the church now became a pillar of the community. And all of this research was done by these 8 and 9-year-olds. So I thought that was really, really excellent. So the success is the students grasped the concepts of heritage and remained engaged and enthusiastic even when things were falling apart. They knew what story they wanted to tell about their community, and they told it. They conducted their own research. It was obvious that they increased their knowledge about their community and about these areas that they wanted to talk about. and they got to talk to old people. You know, small children don't always want to talk to old people, so they spent a lot of time talking to old people. They were able to learn techniques and execute them, which was within the day. So you teach them how to do something, and they were able to execute. And then we have 2 10-minute videos that were produced as a result. Some of the lessons learned: no internet. Now we have devices we can purchase that will bring you internet. But what these guys did on spot, because it was so difficult, was to give the teachers the names of the software, ask them to acquire them when they went home or to the nearest town, and then bring the software back, put it on a computer, and the children could work with it, so that they didn't have to lose time. They also brought their own personal computers on specific days so the students could work with the software there. Recording. There were we had some issues with the variations of recording because they were using one person's phone. So somebody says, oh, well, I have a so-and-so phone, so I'm going to use this, and everybody agreed. What we're suggesting next time is that more than one person is tasked with taking the video, so you have lots of angles and lots of clips, and then we could put them all together. So that's another lesson we learned. Background noise. Children are excited, regardless of what they're doing. So some of their videos had all the talking. So I think what we need to have, even though they all want to participate, I think we have to have a scaled down audience when the videos are being recorded. I think largely that was some of the issues. The audio, we had issues with angles. They're little, they're talking to people who are tall, so you had funny angles and the shaky hands. So we're gonna try to get, the selfie stick and set it up so they would be able to take the videos and less shaking, as well as they could probably get better angles, because then they could take turns holding it. Background noise, I mentioned that. And of course, they didn't always document the names and titles of some of the people that they interviewed. I think one of the things we needed to do was assign roles so that we have a videographer, the person who is the interviewer, and so on. So I think in future we would try to organize them in that way. It would reduce the noise because then people are concentrating on their own task, as well as it makes the process richer. I think the timing of activities, maybe we have to set this up as like a summer workshop or something, so that we have them in a good block and just handle them in a good block and get them to produce what they're producing within, even if we get all the workshops and everything, we have them do a little sample video, maybe a 2-minute clip, and then we'll send them out to do the full-blown activity. Because trying to get there once a month or so over the course of 3 or 4 months, they have other things they're little children, they have other things that's on their minds, like running around and playing, right? Some of the things they could reenact. So we wanted to make sure that we can infuse that. So we'd add somebody else to the project team that could really help them to write a little script. I'm almost done. So what's next? The film festival. That was a challenge. We tried to host that. And every time we booked a date, it clashed with graduation, clashed with Easter break. It clashed with everything on it. Every date that seemed reasonable clashed with something that was going on in the schools. So I think before the project starts, we'll have to sit with the principal and the teacher, work out a date, and then because we're dealing with more than one school, it makes it very, very difficult. Just pick a date, and that way we have that already planned on the school calendar. We need to upload to social media. So once we've done the film festival, we'll upload to social media. So my co-authors did not want us to release the video. So the video is still under wraps until film festival. And then we'll obviously put it up on the MAC page. We'll have a link. The pilot project will now move to other schools. So using the lessons learned and all the workshop material, we'll get the schools that are already involved to then engage and invite schools that are close to them to be able to work with the material and start to produce material together. So we build it out like a web. We want to use the pilot for a basis for more funding, because these schools, this is career development. And some of these children would benefit greatly from more of this kind of experience. And we want to continue until the island is rich with heritage produced by children. I think this is one way that they will listen to each other. They're on social media. My son is on WhatsApp sending videos. So I think at this age, when they're active and want to be doing something, engage them with things that would be useful and enriching. And I hope that others would like to use it, so you can always send your material. So, thanks to all these people, especially the principal and staff of the 2 schools that we engaged. The principals were very accommodating. The teachers were going out on weekends. They took the children on field trips to different things to be able to film people. So I think they really, really did a good job. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sherene, and I think that was a great introduction to our sub-theme today, which of course is the changing environment, adapting our physical spaces for increasingly digital societies, but also how we can take digital out there and grow audiences. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Sometimes we get a bit intimidated by all of this technological stuff that we need, and actually a budget of $1,000 having the reach that you did that will now continue is absolutely inspiring. So we do have time for questions. We have I'll do the runaround again. Sherene, if you could stand here, and we have one from Nicole.
Thanks so much for your presentation. It was really interesting for me. And this is not really a question, it's more of a sort of recommendation.
Yes.
But I don't know if you're familiar with Rosie Chung at Studio 174. She's right around the corner from ACIJ.
Right.
In downtown Kingston. It's an artist-run initiative for everyone else. But she has a really interesting project along very similar lines.
Right.
And they're doing stuff with animation and filmmaking. They do a radio show for their community. So it's a short, it's not for the whole city. It's just like, a little neighborhood.
Right,
I forget what they call it, shortwave or something like this. But she's very passionate about it, and she has people visiting, and she does holiday workshops and all of this. So that might be somebody who you could share notes with. And maybe develop something further.
For absolute sure.
With her.
That sounds like a wonderful idea.
I also wrote about it in Jamaica Journal. An issue or 2 ago, so you could also check that out. But I would be happy to connect you with her, because I think she'll be really excited to hear about this as well.
That sounds great. Thank you, Nicole.
One more question? Going off of that, I know that a cool thing that, like, when I was in elementary school, which is a long time ago now, that's weird. I'm still a kid to me, so that's weird. Sorry. But I know that, like, when there were certain topics like that we were given ideas, a really great thing that I got to experience was working with high school students that did that too. So then it wasn't so much listening to adults tell me, hey, do this, but like, when a high school student also then when I was one and I got to do like the same thing for this, it was like having a big brother or big sister.
Absolutely.
And maybe like, I mean, I'm not saying you should do it, but maybe it'd be a cool like thing to think about of pairing a high school student who's like interested in studying that when they go off to school, but also being like, let me teach you. So then they kind of have their like, I'm a role model, but then also the little kids are having fun because they're working with other people and they think they're part of the big kid group.
In fact, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was just like...
The film festival, even though the videos were done by primary schools, the film festival actually has, we have a few high schools because we want the younger ones to be able to bring the information to them. So we wanted them to see what they did and see how impactful it was for their community, and the little ones would take it to the big ones. And that's how we want it to spread out. It doesn't matter whether it's a high school or a primary school. We want it to spread out from that little nexus of that little rural community and just go elsewhere. Because a lot of times we didn't want to fall into the trap of using an urban school, because it always seems the urban schools are bringing the things to the rural schools. So we had these schools, they were rural, they were interested, they thought they had so much in their community that they wanted to find out about. And we thought this little circle will start and we'll branch out from there. So yes, we're hoping to do these partnerships. Yeah.
I just wanted to share that in the BVI we have something similar because we don't have cultural officers to go out to all the schools. We have a schools cultural committee, and each school sends a representative to this committee, and we also have our Culture Week coming up in November.
Nice.
So there's so many similarities, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful to hear these things happening. So we do have part of the school's terms of reference, or the school's cultural committee, is to form culture clubs
Yeah.
in the schools,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
listening to this is just fantastic. And listening to some of the lessons that you've learned
Yeah.
will help us, because
They
we've
were
only
hard
had
lessons.
2 schools form their culture clubs so far.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that each school will, and it's for private and public schools. We don't. So it's great to hear your presentation and to know
Thanks.
that we're on the right track.
Thanks. It's great to know we're on the right track. Thank you very, very much. Yeah.